very blessed to be back into the studio today at the beginning of January 2021. And we thank the folks here at Market Street Media and all that they're doing to keep us safe and healthy. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. We're with Kelly Ritzko, Kelly Taylor Ritzko, for some of you folks that are in Johnson City here with us, of Johnson City Heating and Air. And so Kelly, give me a little bit of a backstory.
Sure.
Where'd you grow up?
Right here in Johnson City. I've been here, 49 years, minus 6 that I flew for Delta Airlines and lived in Atlanta and Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Give a little bit of a backstory for folks as far as, for the folks of Johnson City that kind of know Johnson City, what elementary school did you grow up going to?
I went to Fairmont Elementary.
Love that.
I actually grew up directly across the street from Fairmont. And I guess I'll put a little bit of a plug in right now for my other job that I have, other than being an owner of Johnson City Heating and Air. I'm also an agent with Keller Williams. And I have my grandmother's house right now at 1406 Lester Harris Road that is currently on the market and available. So reach out to me.
Close to the school, right?
Absolutely
That
perfect.
is great.
Perfect location for a family with children that are going to go to Fairmont, right there in the heart of North Johnson City.
Love that. So tell me about growing up, going to Fairmont, being a kid in Johnson City. What kind of kid were you?
Oh, I posed that question to my mom and my aunt last night and my dad. And I had to think about it a little bit too, what kind of a kid I was. We did everything with family back then. You didn't have social media, you didn't have cell phones. So you weren't tied to all those things. And everything that's gone on in the past 6 months, year with COVID, with the election, it's kind of caused me to kind of step back and think about, golly, I really wish that we could go back to the way that things were then. I was a curious child, and I loved to go to school. I loved to be with my friends. I love to be with my family. My mom was a single mom for many years, and so my grandparents, her parents, really raised me, or helped to raise me a lot. And my aunt and uncle, and I'm still very close to them. All my grandparents are gone now. My last grandparent passed away during COVID, so that's been a little bit difficult. But I'm like, golly, I can remember going to the creek there in front of Fairmont, and walking through there to see my friends in the Gump Edition. And it's been really kind of fun to see the houses in the Gump be renovated and taken back and changed from what they were then. Right. And just see those. And a lot of the people that are moving into those houses are not like people that I grew up with, but like you, Ryan, people that grew up with my brother and my cousins. And so that's been kind of fun. And so in the heating and air industry, we've done several of those houses, and that's what I love. That's really what drove me into real estate, into my second occupation, was just the love of going into those houses and seeing what people were doing with them.
Yeah, there's been a lot of renovation. A lot of our friends have gone over there and just done some really cool stuff. So I'm
Gorgeous.
Sure in the world of HVAC and seeing the bones of the inside and kind of seeing the inside of the house and things like that, that's just been a great experience for
Absolutely.
you guys.
Absolutely beautiful homes over there.
That's really cool. So sort of tell us a story maybe about something that you and your parents did with you guys as kids that really typifies what your life was like, kind of in that 5, 6, 7-year-old, 10 to 12-year-old years of living in Johnson City.
Well, I will say that downtown Johnson City was the heart of Johnson City back then. The Christmas parade went straight down Main Street every year. I can remember the Christmas decorations that were the old tinsel, decorations that hung on the light post. You probably remember that. The Christmas parade was like the highlight. I mean, there were times that I felt like we were in New York City watching Macy's Thanksgiving Day parades, because my mom worked for, at the time, United American First People's Bank, and it was on the corner of Main and I don't know what that would be.
Maybe Roan.
Diagonal from Massengills.
Yeah,
it probably would be Roan. And so we would get up in the windows, upstairs and watch the parade. Or my grandfather's, he was a podiatrist, and his office was right across the street from here in the Hamilton Bank building. We would get in his windows and watch it. And so that was kind of how Johnson City was back then. Everybody came out to these events, much like they're trying to, bring back now with Blue Plum and some of the other festivals. But I guess the thing that stands out to me is family dinners. We always went to my grandmother's and had lasagna once a week. Holidays were always in the grandparents' house. They weren't traveling, and that's not so much the case any longer. And then probably the thing that stands out to me the most is just getting in the car on Friday nights and riding, just taking rides. I know that sounds crazy and like,
I agree.
like the Cleavers.
Yeah, no.
But, I mean, that's really how it was. And at Christmas time, driving around and looking at the Christmas lights, and you always knew who had the best Christmas lights. And one of the other things I guess I'm just kind of reminiscing about the holiday season right now, just coming out of that. But I can remember just knowing exactly who I was going to be getting we were going to be getting Christmas cards from. And the one that stands out in my mind, my grandfather and Carl A. Jones were best friends, and Carl was Mr. Jones was the publisher of the Johnson City Press at that time, Press Chronicle. And the Joneses sent out the best Christmas card every year because it was actually like a flyer. I mean, it was a 3-page booklet that showed pictures of all their kids. And so that was, we don't do that anymore. You get a picture, and I love to keep my picture cards. But it was just like, golly, you got to keep up with people because you didn't have social media back then.
Sure. That was the way to do it.
Yeah, so that's kind of, that's what we did. Saturday mornings we went and washed the car and went to breakfast. And so we were just typical. We went to my grandparents, used to own Johnson City Furniture behind First Presbyterian Church.
Yep.
And so on Saturday mornings we'd go get breakfast, we'd go wash the car, and then we'd go to the furniture store, and I'd help Granddaddy down there. So, a lot of history downtown. For my family, between my grandfather's podiatry office in the Hamilton Bank Building and my grandparents' furniture store. So I love seeing what's going on here downtown. Me too. My husband and daughter and I live in Gray, and so we don't come into Johnson City, and it's like, gosh, I got to drive to Johnson City. But it's really not that far, but it's so sad that now, we're so tied to what we do in our homes and, in this little succinct area that we live in.
Right.
So, but I love seeing what's going on down here.
Yeah, for those of you guys that weren't able to come down during December, the Christmas tree light show in the Founders Park was just
gorgeous.
It was one of those opportunities to really put Johnson City on display.
Right.
And I really hope they do it again next year. I know it was kind of in tandem with not doing the Christmas parade.
Right.
And not having events like Turkey Trot and things like that, but I really hope that's able to stick around because that was such a great opportunity. So speaking of family, what is your family kind of describe? How do they describe what you do for a living?
All right, so this is something that I posed to my whole family last night. My daughter, my husband, my mom, my dad, my aunt and cousins. And I got a plethora of answers there. The first one was, which job? So I guess that the main thing that they described what I do as is the owner, admin, financial. I do all of that for Johnson City Heating and Air. My dad said jack of all trades for a heating and air company. Our daughter said, well, Mom, you do everything. And I'm like, well, somebody in the family does realize that I do everything. But my mom was like, you own a heating and air company. And bless my mom's little heart, my mom was just diagnosed with ALS. And so she can't talk at this point. And she was like, is that the answer you wanted? I'm not real good with words right now, and I can't really, I'm so focused on what's going on with my illness that I can't really. And I was like, yeah, Mom, that's all I wanted.
That's great.
So, owner of a heating and air company and jack of all trades, I guess.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your all's business at Johnson City Heating and Air.
Well, I'll give you a little backstory on that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
My husband, Ed, and I have been married for almost 15 years.
Congratulations.
It's been hard sometimes, but we've made it. And we actually met. I was a flight attendant with Delta. He was actually a pilot with U.S. Airways Express. He moved here from Pennsylvania with a former fiance. They broke up. He stayed here working for U.S. Airways. He was actually with Mesa, a subsidiary of U.S. Airways Express. And Friend of ours, I came back here to work and help take care of my grandmother. I was working at the Coalition for Kids at the time. One of our board members flew radio control jets with Ed, and he said, I've got somebody you need to meet. And I'm like, I don't do blind dates. No. They showed me a picture of him, and I guess Ed will probably get mad at me for telling this, but he was bald on top. He had kind of the little, and I was like, and I don't go out with bald guys. And so they really fixed that for me. Bud had him come over to the Coalition because he had mysteriously had an accident, and he needed to get an accident report. So Ed and I met, and we married, and he got laid off with U.S. Airways after their second bankruptcy. And thank goodness he had the intuition. The way that he earned his money to pay for his flying lessons was to do HVAC with a friend from high school's family who owned a company.
Yeah.
So he went to work for Barry. He went to work for Blevins Electric when they were still open. And then he went to work for ETSU for a while in their physical plant, in their department. He was at the College of Medicine, and one day he just said, how would you feel about opening our own business? I said, oh, sure, yeah, that'll be great. One of those little things where you say, oh, let's open our own business. That'll be fun. Yeah, right. So we started the process. There's been ups and there's been downs. I was really afraid this year. We are very, very blessed with just so many loyal customers, you and Sarah. And that's the thing about our business. I think that's what drives me as the one in the office is that, because we've had people that have asked us if we would sell the business to them, and I can't do it. I just can't do it because when I look at those filing cabinets with those files in them, those are my friends. Those are my family. Those are my friends of friends and friends of family.
Right.
And when you sell a business, especially a small business, and you sell it to somebody larger than you, you don't know how they're going to treat those people. And, are they going to take on my commercial customers who are like family to me? So that's really what Ed and I have tried to do with the business is as Ed is an absolute mechanical genius. And thankfully, he's unlike me. He's very much OCD. And so when he goes in and he does a job, it looks like a piece of art. And I'm like, how do you make, an HVAC system look like a piece of art?
Right.
But he does. He cares that much. He's always said, when we've been hiring people, he's always said, I'm not worried about how it looks today or when a new construction closes or when we finish that job. I want to know what it's going to look like 10 years down the road. And if we get called in to work on that, I want to be able to know that those bundles of electrical wires are exactly the same way that everything else, that I can figure out what we've done there. So that is just a huge blessing with him, and I think that is a large part of what has driven our business. Right now, during COVID, I was very, very scared, and that's a lot of the reason. You were a big influence in me going and doing the real estate class and taking my test and really encouraging me to keep going back and everything, but I did that to kind of be a subsidiary occupation if something happened with the business during COVID. That was kind of what drove me to finish up the class and the test and everything. But we've been so stinking blessed that I haven't had time to focus on it. We've always been busy, but this year I don't know if it's because husbands are staying at home and working, and they've always thought, oh, well, my wife's just saying it's hot in here or it's cold in here or whatever, just to, because that's her temperature gauge, internal temperature gauge. But we have literally, in your neighborhood alone, Ryan, we have done 2 and 3 unit change-outs. Nothing wrong with the units other than they were a little bit old, or they may have been an older refrigerant. Then people wanted to forge ahead with the new, more green refrigerant, R410A. We've never done 2 and 3 unit change-outs, just because. So we have been extremely blessed. People have been just, wanting to do what they can. So.
Right. What do you see? It sounds a lot like the family and the friends and the friends of the friends add to your vision of what you desire your company to be.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about like that role of what you see you guys being able to do as a business, what your vision is for your business.
Sure. And that's something that I've really thought a lot about because I feel like 2020 was just kind of survive. I mean, for everybody, I think, personally, professionally, I think it was just survive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I've seen so many families that are no longer families from 2020. Divorces happening, businesses closing. And I think that for me at least, when I came to the realization that 2020 was about to be gone, it was kind of a feeling of hope for 2021. And I thought, we've really got to step up our game. We've got to step up our game. We've got to change the way we do things. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions in stepping up that game. And honest to goodness, I mean, I know I keep going back and talking about Keller Williams and about my second job as an agent. But one of the things that I've learned, and there you go, one of the things I've learned in Keller Williams is, from reading the book, The One Thing, focusing on that one thing. What do we do well?
Right.
And in the book with The One Thing, it's really about that one thing every day that you can do. But if you really look at it, it's really about what's that one thing I can focus on? What's the one thing that I can do that can make me a better agent, that can make Johnson City Heating and Air a better heating and air company?
Right.
And so that's kind of something that I had to step back and think about for this year. And Ed and I've talked about it a lot. Ed's kind of full bore. We're so busy right now that he is just forging ahead and trying to get people heat.
Yep. Working in the business.
We're in the business. We're in the business. I'm on the business. And so for us for this year, I feel like our focus is really focusing on that customer service aspect, making sure that we're making those follow-up calls, making sure that, if I have a customer that hadn't called us for a while, I'm praying that it's because we fixed it so well that they don't need us.
Yeah.
But if they have called us because, we didn't get out there quick enough for them, then, I want to make that phone call and say, hey, I hadn't heard from you. Is everything going okay? Is there anything we can do? We're running, and let them know about our energy savings agreement to come out and check their units twice a year. And so that's really kind of where I want to focus this year is on that customer service aspect. And sometimes talking about the hard choices that you have to make, I've kind of put in the back of my mind, there may be times that we can't take on new clients.
Yeah.
Because I want to focus on those clients that have been so loyal to us over the years. Not saying that a new customer isn't going to also be a loyal client, but if I can't focus on those clients that have been here, for 11 years, I'm not going to do a good service for the new folks.
For sure.
So we've really got to up our game there.
And you're not alone in that. I mean, I think every business owner that I'm talking to literally is saying, yeah, it was an eye-opening experience, 2020. We shifted, we survived, and it really opened our eyes to the opportunity to really get our systems in place to make sure that customer service, continues to thrive, because we know that our service to our clients is what keeps us all in business.
Right.
So I'm encouraged to hear you say that. I'm encouraged that you guys are continuing to look at your operation and say,
Absolutely.
hey, we're great, but we can always get better.
Right.
Right? I mean, The Innovator's Dilemma, that's a good book for you guys to read as leaders in the HVAC industry in the Tri-Cities. Talks about Blockbuster being number one in the world for video. And then where are they now?
Right. They're gone.
Because they said, you know what? We're good. We don't necessarily need to make any changes.
Right.
Because we're the leader.
Yeah.
And I think that is an opportunity for us as leaders in business and in industry to say, yeah, we're great. We're fine. I like where we are.
Right.
However, we always have opportunity to pivot. We always have opportunity to move forward and get better and evolve into that next phase of business. So I'm glad to hear you say that. Has that impacted your role with engaging talent or with the folks that work for you guys?
That's a huge question. I think that any HVAC company right now, any kind of contractor right now, would tell you that we are all so busy right now that finding that talent is extremely difficult. Um, don't want to get real political here because I know that's not what we're here about, but it has been very difficult to get people. I can put out all kinds of feelers on Indeed, on Facebook, and unfortunately, with what has happened in the country in the past year, and the unemployment increase, you know, there are jobs out there, but right now I can't even get people to come in. I'll call them to do an interview because they will seek me out.
Sure.
And they set up an interview, but they don't come. They don't show up. And all I can, as an employer, assume is that they've accepted that interview as a condition to continue to get their unemployment. Is that true? I don't know.
Right, because you never had the opportunity to have the conversation.
Correct. Yeah. So finding people to work right now is a real hard thing. So if there's anybody out there that has friends, family that, whether they have experience or not in HVAC, if you have experience in sales, if you have experience in administrative assistance, contact me. I'd love to talk to you. And I'm sure you're the same way. We know a ton of people that are looking for good help right now.
Yeah.
So, my cousin's husband is the Young Life director in Bristol. Called me yesterday and said, hey, look, I've got a guy that used to be one of my Young Life kids. He doesn't have any experience, but he's really struggling right now. Would you at least talk to him? Absolutely. The kid's coming in Monday.
Right.
We can train you. And honestly, in the construction field, most contractors want to train somebody, or subcontractors, especially, want to train somebody with their procedures and the way they do it. So having no experience may take a little bit more time to learn the trade, but it's not a problem to us.
You want a coaching tip?
Sure.
These phone calls that you're making to your clients, those clients want to see you succeed.
Right.
I think a great follow-up question would be, who do you know? Because they're going to know somebody that you don't know, and they can put you in touch with them, and they know the type of people that you want working for your company. They know the type of ethics and morals you guys stand beside or behind, and I think that would be a good opportunity while you're making these care calls, while you're making these opportunity calls, checking in with folks. Maybe add that to the list of questions that you're giving to them, to where then now you're expanding your reach as opposed to just one or two people here and there that you're running into. Like, it's systematized that you're having that conversation with folks looking for that talent.
That's a great idea.
How do you own the results of your all's company?
It's hard sometimes. Just honest. It's hard sometimes because it's personal to me. And I always want to back my employees, but I also know that if a customer calls me and says, hey, this wasn't right, it wasn't done right. That's that's just really hard, because I don't want to have and mainly that comes with the service end, because Ed is on every new construction and change out job. And in the service end of it, I don't want to send somebody out and you have to call me, or Sarah have to call me and say, hey, so-and-so was out there and it's not right. At that point, I have to kind of do two things. One, step back and look at that employee and go back and look at their qualifications and have a conversation with them and say, look, you told me you knew how to do this. Walk me through. Had this happen this past weekend? Walk me through what you did. Tell me every little step you did, and did you know what you were doing at all those steps? That's a hard conversation to have, because people wear their heart on their sleeve so much and have pride about their work that they get offended. And that's the last thing I want to do, is offend one of my employees, but I also don't want my customers to be dissatisfied.
For sure.
So and when the customers call in, sometimes I get a little, offended too, because it's personal to me. And I'm like, well, he's a great technician. He's been here for, he's been in the business for 16, 20 years, whatever it may be. But you have to realize that they're just not happy about something.
Right.
So when that happens, I'm normally not going to send that same technician out.
Yep.
I'm going to normally send my husband out. Ed, there's not much that he can't fix. So I'm normally going to send him out because that way I have his eyes on it and he can come back to me and he can say, nope, right here, step whatever they told you, that's not what they did.
Right.
So I just, it kind of comes to a point, do you charge them for it? Do you not charge them for it? I'm willing to work with anybody. I still have to pay that employee.
Right.
But if I can work with you, I'm going to work with you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I have to take that personal issue out. And that's something that I really have thought that's one of the things that I wanted to work on personally this year for myself.
And what I can feel from just knowing you guys is that you all, I would imagine, would come from the humble.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Of, I know it's your perspective. I'm humbled, and whatever your perspective is I'm here to help you.
Right.
And even going to the employee as well. I wasn't there. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you did it wrong. I just need to know what you did,
right,
so we can either explain that to the client or
right,
say, oh, you know what? There's an opportunity there to get better, to fix this in a different way.
And really with the employees, that's the only way that we can figure out what training they may need.
Right.
That's also a learning point for them. And then I look at it and I say, okay, let me look out to see where they have some, of course, everything's online or by Zoom right now.
Yeah.
Where can I find you some training to take
Right.
to help you with this issue?
I can see that being a great accountability conversation too.
Oh, absolutely it is.
And if they approach it with the right mindset, then it's not taken as personal, and
Yes.
it's a growth opportunity, whether they did it right or they didn't do it right.
Right. The thing that you do find, though, and this kind of goes back to my daughter, it's kind of like a dancer, is that if you tell her, tell them, oh, point your toes a little bit more. They are so OCD, most of them, that they're going to be totally offended and be like, I'm not coming back to class, And so some of these service technicians, because they have been in it so long, that's exactly the same attitude they take. So as you said, you want it to be an accountability, a teaching point, but sometimes it's not taken that way.
Well, it's hard for all of us.
Oh,
It's hard
yes.
for all of us to be told, hey, you've got an opportunity to be better.
Right.
Because then inherently we all think, in a way, I believe, oh, well, I'm not good enough for you or for this
Right.
situation or
Right.
whatever. So I can see both sides of the coin on this one. So let's talk about kind of macro level. What's kind of trending in the world of HVAC? Like, what do you all have your radar on? What are you guys looking to do the next step? I heard all the talk about the new refrigerant and things like that.
Right.
What else is going on that is causing you all to evolve or causing you all to change?
Well, there's several things. Locally, for the city of Johnson City and Washington County, they are adopting a new set of codes. And so there's a training class coming up, and I'm not sure if it's put on by the state or if it's put on by the Home Builders Association. But as a member of the Home Builders Association, we are able to go to that. So we are trying to focus on those changes in the code. Luckily, the city of Johnson City has kind of been working those in. And in the state of Tennessee, there is an adopted set of codes, but any municipality or town can adopt or supersede those codes as long as they go above. And so the city of Johnson City they've always attained to go above those. So they have been trying to get us to the point where we know exactly what's going to happen with the adoption of these new codes. So that's locally. Nationally, I think that COVID has really affected the HVAC industry in the UV light.
Talk to me about that. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. UV lights have been commonly used in hospitals, medical settings for many years. When you go into a hospital and you get what they call that hospital smell, that's ozone. It's a UV light that for us is put into the ductwork.
Okay.
And as that air passes through that ductwork, it actually kills viruses, molds, super technology. We use a company out of Texas called Air Oasis to install that. We use their lights. I've had them in my house personally for, gosh, 8 years. And knock on wood, as much as my husband's been out in all of houses during during COVID. I always want to say the COVID.
Yeah. During
COVID, we've not had it, thankfully, that we know of. But I feel like the UV light has been a part of that. And I don't think we've had an actual stomach bug since we put those in. We've had food poisoning.
Sure.
I've seen a huge change in my allergies, my sinuses. But there's actually a incentive through the TVA for commercial accounts to put UV lights in commercial buildings. So we're looking at those with some of our commercial accounts, particularly some that we have down in Pigeon Forge with arcades and that kind of thing. And so that's something huge that's going on right now.
Yeah.
There's so many manufacturers of the UV lights. There's also different types. The ones that I talked about go in the ductwork. There's some that actually fit, like you'll see in a hospital, actually go in like the corner of a room, and they're a larger type box that sits up there, and you'll sometimes see the blue light and that kind of thing. But it's funny. I sometimes will come into the house and I'm like, the UV light's working. What do we got going on? Yeah. So that's something that's huge. A lot of people are wanting to do that. And I think a lot of that came about. There was a story, and I think it was this summer, about some folks that were at a restaurant. And I want to say it was in Nashville. This is kind of when all this kind of, when the UV light craze hit. And I think then the President Trump said something about, putting UV lights in people's bodies. And that I can't remember that whole conversation. I quit watching the news after about April 1st. Yeah. But there was a story about some folks that were eating at a restaurant. And they contracted COVID from people that were 12 feet away from, or 6 feet away from, in a different table. But they think it actually came through the HVAC ventilation system. And so that kind of started driving the UV lights. TVA, like I said, started driving it with their incentive. So that's one of the big national things. But then, of course, smartphones, smart technology for HVAC. I mean, you've got technology on water faucets that you can, program in your phone to turn on your water faucet at 8 a.m. for, 12 ounces of water. Yeah. So smart technology is a big thing. Wi-Fi thermostats that people can set, when they're out of town. They can turn, while they're en route back home, they can turn their HVAC back up to a certain temperature so it's warm or cool for them when they arrive back home. So smart technology is a big thing as well. And of course, there's technology. Nest is one of the big ones. Honeywell, which is who we normally use. Nest and Google are partnered up, and then Honeywell has their own thing. But they all have their doorbells. They have their cameras. So there's like so many components out there with the smart technology that even fits into your HVAC.
And you guys are a big part of that, I can imagine.
We try to be. We always offer that to our customers, and people are wanting it more. It's more the younger generations, the ones that are used to using the smart technology for everything. Typically, we don't have a lot of, older folks that want to use that smart technology because a lot of them don't even have smartphones. Yeah. Heck, my husband didn't have one for, 4 years ago. Right. Till I made him. But, so those are huge things that are going on right now.
So what's, with all this new technology, with the way that you work with your clients and your employees, what would you say is your value proposition?
For Johnson City Heating and Air, our value proposition, and I'm going to give you what I want it to be for 2021. Yeah. we do a lot of work, and I've talked a lot to Rusty Mabe with Face Amusements. And Rusty's a great guy, and Bucky, they've really got it going on with Face. And we do a lot of work with them, and their values that they have, you know, faith, accountability, consistency, and excellence. That's really what I'd like to see in Johnson City Heating and Air. I don't want to take their values, but right now, that's really and I'm not going to preach to my employees that they have to have faith, but as a Christian, I want to go into 2021 with a new, fresh perspective, and I want to be able to offer grace and hope to my employees and my customers. And consistency is probably one of the biggest things that my husband, the Ed, preaches. Is, you know what, if you're doing a change out, or if you're doing a new construction, that there are ways, there are procedures that we follow for every single job. Excellence. I think everybody should just shoot for excellence. Get up and sure, the day may go to heck in a handbasket by about 11:30, but if you shoot for excellence and that's your goal, at the end of the day, you're going to be able to find something that you did better, that you did, somebody's day that you made by doing something. So I think that's really what our value proposition is. We've got great employees. That's a big thing. We've got loyal customers. And just trying to really focus on that is knowing that we're here for you. And if you call me, if my phone rings when it's forwarded, at midnight and you have no heat and it's, 20 degrees outside, you know that Ed Ritzko is going to get out of bed and come out there, because that's just how he is. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that people have always seen as a value with us.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. So kind of wrapping up here, where can people go to find you? Social media, your website? How do they get in touch with you guys?
Sure. We are on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook has been our biggest driver. We are also in the Home Builders Association this year in conjunction with the News and Neighbor. Jeff Derby did a publication that I think maybe we may have in the real estate offices. Do we have them? It has all of the Home Builders Association members in there. We are in there. You can get our contact information there. That's a huge resource that tells you, if you need electrical, appliance work, if you need a subcontractor for anything from, like us, HVAC, electrical, painting, wonderful resource. I would definitely recommend finding something there. And we do have a website, and I can never remember what it is because we focus mainly on Facebook and Instagram. JohnsonCityHeatingAir.net.
Okay.
Or just call me at 423-467-9986.
Great.
Or my cell phone if you have it.
Call or text.
Yeah, call or text. Text,
right.
Preferably, please.
Well, this has been fun, Kelly.
Yeah.
I always enjoy getting to talk with you and catch up with you. And I love Johnson City Heating and Air and what you guys do for our community. So thank you for coming in. And
thank you.
And we appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us and let our listeners know about your all's small business. And that's the purpose of the Johnson City Small Business Podcast, is
Absolutely.
just to let the citizens and the folks of Johnson City get connected to our small businesses here. So we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, please do. I mean, because we are, we're smaller than some of the other locally owned HVAC companies. And even though we've been busy, just throughout this transition and everything, just keep your small businesses in your thoughts to go to, because, we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, that's right.
So, that's all we try to do is shop small. So
that's right.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. Well, that's it for us. Thank you to Leighton Hart, our sound engineer. If it sounds great, it's all because of Leighton, and I know it does. So we appreciate you guys listening. Until next time, welcome to the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. We'll talk to you guys soon.